Fate Be Changed, Chapter 9, Merida. Merida covered her mouth with both hands and cursed herself for being such a ninny hammer. She then cursed the stuffed wild boar head mounted on the opposite wall for scaring her. After taking a moment to catch her breath, she finally took time to look around and realized she was in the drawing room. Sometimes drawing rooms had... She looked around and spotted it. Yes, there was a servant's entrance, and Merida would have bet anything that just off the servant's entrance was a passageway to the scullery, larder, and courtyards. She crossed the room, slipped through the small doorway, and within minutes found herself outside in the bailey. She remembered where she and Eleanor had entered and quickly made her way back to the side gate. Rushing forward, Merida was hit with a wave of emotion when she spotted Angus standing near the tree where they had left him the previous day. He grazed on the grass as if enjoying a typical morning meal, oblivious to the fact that both their lives had been flipped upside down. "Hey there, boy," Merida greeted her horse. Angus neighed happily when he spotted her, dancing in a circle before pummeling her with his head. "I missed you too." She climbed onto Angus's back, and they took off to the direction Merida and Eleanor have traveled from earlier. As they rode deeper into the forest, the thick leaves shielded more of the sun, making it harder to distinguish the path from the rest of the forest floor. They were just cresting a short mound. Merida wondered which direction she should try next, when she caught the sight of a soft glow out of the corner of her eye. "Hold, Angus," she said, drawing up the horse's reins. She focused on the area where she had seen the light. There it was again. "A wisp," Merida breathed. There was another one, then another. Finally, a lead. "Come, Angus," she whispered. She directed the horse to follow the little blue flashes of light, even as trepidation floated around in her stomach. She wasn't sure she would trust the wisps, considering what had happened the last time she followed them. Then again, the wisps were her best chance of finding the woodcarver's cottage. Maintaining her distance, Merida stayed several yards behind the tiny blue sparks as they scurried through the woods. She frowned when the wisps stopped, flickering brighter for a moment as they gathered, then disappeared. "Here?" she asked, stopping Angus at the start of the stone path. The wisps had guided her back to the village, and she had been chased away the day before. If it was true that wisps were meant to lead her to her fate, then her fate must have been to get her head bashed in with a broom. She tied Angus's reins to a post next to the trough and let him drink water while she ventured further down the path, her feet moving quickly. She walked past the butcher, remembering his less than warm welcome, choosing instead to visit the blacksmith. A bell chimed above her head as she entered the shop. "Hello?" Merida called. "Well, hello there, lass," a man wearing a dented face shield greeted. "What can I do for you?" He set down his tongs and lifted the shield, revealing a gap-toothed smile. Merida returned his smile, immediately feeling more at ease from this vastly different reception. It was nice to know that there were some pleasant people in this little village. "Good day to you, sir," she said, walking further into the shop. This question may seem a bit odd, but do you know of an old woodcarver who specializes in bears? She has wiry gray hair and keeps a pet bird." His wrinkly forehead creased even more with his frown. Only one woodcarver here, lass. Well, two if you count her daughter. I don't know about no pet bird, and both their hair is as black as the coal that's forged here," he said, pointing to the smoldering hearth in the center of his shop. "Though the daughter has that silver streak, folks say she is struck by lightning." Merida remembered the woman who had caught her eye during her previous visit. She had a streak of silver in her hair. "Can you tell me where to find them?" she asked the blacksmith. "I wouldn't bother if I were you." He scratched his scruffy beard, then motioned for Merida to come closer. Leaning forward, he whispered, "Trust me, lass. Stay away." The bell above the door chimed, and another man, wearing a saffron-colored lion, entered. The blacksmith's face lit up. "Sir," Merida called, but the blacksmith had already turned his attention to the other customer. Merida left the shop. After checking on Angus, she started for the next thatched roof building, a leather worker, according to the sign above the door. Just as she reached for the handle, an unsettling feeling raced up Merida's spine. She caught sight of a figure in black out of the corner of her eye. Merida turned and spotted the woman, the one with the protrusive nose and silver streak in her hair. She must have been the woodcarver's daughter the blacksmith had spoken of. She stood outside a tiny building at the end of the dirt road and stared at Merida. Her piercing gaze made Merida uncomfortable, but there was something familiar about her. Merida could not pinpoint what it was that drew her in. She stared in the direction of the woman, but a man hitching his horse to a post outside the leather workshop caught her by the arm. "You don't want to go there, lass," the man said. He nodded in the direction of the woman. She's a strange one. What do you mean by strange? Merida asked. I won't say more. He shook his head and looked over his shoulder. But you would be better off staying away, he said, echoing the blacksmith. Merida considered heeding their warnings, but decided to keep going. After all, she'd been considered an interloper not 24 hours ago. Approaching the shop with caution, Merida glanced up at the building. There was nothing indicating what type of business was housed there, just a plain wooden door with a jagged groove carved down the center, as if someone had taken a chisel to it. Merida knocked, even as she recognized how silly it was to do so, given that this was a business that was open to the public. But unlike the previous shop she had visited, it did not feel right to just barge in. There was a faint voice behind the door, which Merida took as an invitation. Yet when she walked in, the shop was empty. Of everything. No items for sale, no shelves, no people. Only 4 bare walls. Hello? Merida called, searching for any sign of life. Oh, hello there! She jumped. She turned to find a much older woman with raven black hair and striking gray eyes walking through the side door she had not even noticed was there. Welcome, 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 the woman greeted. We are altering the shop, so all of our carvings are in the back room. Follow me. The woman flew past Merida and headed for the opposite side of the room. She knocked 3 times on the bare wall, and a panel opened. Merida's mouth flew open. There were camouflaged doors at Castle Dunbrock, intended to mislead intruders to give the household time to escape, but none as seamless as this one. How had they managed to conceal the doorway so well? And why would a shopkeeper need such a well-designed secret door? This did not seem like the kind of occupation that required quick escapes. Well, are you coming? The woman called out to her. Merida hesitated for a moment, then followed her to the back room. She stuttered to a stop the moment she crossed the threshold. Bears. Hundreds and hundreds of bears. The carvings were everywhere and in all sizes, just as they had been at the witch's cottage. Who sent you here? Merida spun around. It was the other woman who had noticed she had noticed standing outside the shop, the one with the streak of silver in her hair. She came charging toward Merida, grabbing her by the arm. What are you? Merida said. Freya, you do not treat customers this way, the older woman said. I do not think she is a customer, Ma, the younger of the two answered. The older woman shrugged and walked over to a tree stump that had been sliced in half. The one called Freya slapped at the wall, and yet another hidden door opened. Still holding on to Merida's arm, she pulled her into a smaller room that had nothing but a lone bench sitting in the middle of it. Then she turned and plopped her hands on her hips. Did someone from the council send you? She asked. Council? What council? I have no idea what you're speaking of, Merida answered. Do not lie to me. She leaned forward and sniffed Merida's hair. I smell the magic on you. You can tell the council that I have not practiced another spell since their last reprimand. Spell? Merida took a step back. You are a witch. Well, aren't you the claymore calling the board's board dole? Freya said with a huff. What does that even mean? The woman looked over her shoulder and, in a hushed voice, said, It means that it takes a witch to know a witch. But I'm not a witch. Freya's eyes narrowed. She sniffed at Merida's shoulder and again at her hair. If you are not a witch, then why do I sense magic coming from you? Who are you? What is it you are seeking from me? Was it possible that this woman could help her? I am seeking answers, Merida said. I need to know how I got here. You got here by horse. I saw your steed outside. Not here, Merida said with a sigh. Freya pointed an accusatory finger at Merida. Look here, girlie, you had better... Oh my goodness, Merida gasped. She finally recognized it. The thing that she had not been able to pinpoint about the woman earlier. It was in the hand gesture and the way she twisted that bulbous nose. You're the old woman who gave me the cake, Merida whispered. Her eyes roamed over the woman's face. She shook her head, unable to process what she was seeing. This cannot be. Her throat felt suddenly tight. She took several steps back as if putting physical distance between herself and the woman would change what was happening. This was even more than she'd witnessed in the forest and on the way to McCameron Castle, was alarming confirmation of what she suspected. Somehow she had traveled to a time before she was born, before her parents had even met, back when their respective clans held very recent memories of being sworn enemies. But how? Merida asked in a weak voice. You start a question, but you do not finish it, Freya said. Spit it out. I need to sort through what has happened, Merida said. You see, I made a deal with a witch, and I believe that you are that witch. But you are much older. You sold a cake to me that was supposed to change my mother, but I ate it instead, and now I'm here. Merida cradled her hands in her palms. This does not make any sense, but there is no other explanation. Let me see if I understand this correctly, Freya said. You are saying that you came to me for a spell, and the spell that I created sent you back in time? Excitement danced in her eyes. Do you know how powerful a witch has to be to create such a spell? She clapped her hands together and squealed. How long did it take? Was I confident in my ability, or did I seem afraid? Did I make any mistakes, or did I get the spell correct on the first try? This is not about you, Merida practically shouted. I do not belong here. You did this to me. Me? Freya jerked her head back. It seems to me that you did this to yourself. You sought a spell to change your mother, but instead you used it. Do I have that right? Yes, Merida answered. Well, you cannot just go around using spells intended for others. That is not how these things work. How do we fix it? Why should I fix it? I did not break anything. Please, Merida pleaded. I have nowhere else to turn. Freya stared at her with a skeptical lift to her brow. After a moment, she took Merida by the hand and brought her to the bench. Before we can figure out how to fix it, we must figure out exactly what had happened, Freya said. Now, start from the beginning. Merida did just that, from how the wisps led her to the cottage, hidden deep in the forest, to the deal they struck, to when Merida decided to eat the cake herself and woke up inside the ring of stones. I cannot be certain, but I'm fairly sure that there are still quite a few years before I'm even to be born, Merida finished. Is that so? Freya asked. A self-satisfied smile curved in the corners of her mouth. It sounds as if I'm a very powerful witch in my old age. Her shoulders slumped. Unfortunately, my current skills are, not so powerful, shall we say. She put her hands up. I'm getting better every day, but I'm still learning. Oh, I know! Freya jumped up from the bench. Wait here. Moments later, she returned with a parcel of worn animal hide secured with twine. She set the package in her lap, and the twine unraveled on its own, as if invisible fingers were untying it. Merida gasped. How did you do that? I might not be an all-powerful witch, yet, Freya added, but I do have some abilities. She lifted a book of bound linen sheets from the parcel. Now tell me what it is that you were seeking when you inquired about the spell. I shall try to find the one I used. You did not consult a book, Merida said. I didn't? Freya's eyebrows shot up. That cagey smile returned to her lips. I must be an even better witch than I imagined. I hope I charged you a hefty price for this spell. Ma says I devalue our wood carvings all the time, but I think it's better to get some payment with no payment at all. Can we get back to the matter at hand? Merida asked impatiently. Yes, of course, Freya said. So, if I understand correctly, the formidable spell that I created sent you back in time. Yes, Merida nodded. She hesitated for a moment, then said, but that's not all. She realized that if she wanted Freya to help her, she would have to share everything that had come to pass in the time since she first awoke in the forest. I believe I should start even further in the past, Merida said. She tipped her head to the side. Actually, it is not in the past, but in the future. This is so confusing. I do have other businesses to tend to today, Freya prompted. Merida quickly told her the story of how her parents met, ending with the man she'd been seen rescuing that day before. Freya's mouth gaped, her jaw dropping more with every detail. What do you make of this? Merida was almost afraid to ask, once she was done. She prayed Freya had a logical answer. I think it's obvious, Freya said. You spent the night at McCameron Castle. You know who Eleanor is. She is my mother, Merida said. Based on what you've told me, yes, I believe she is, Freya answered. I also believe the two of you never should have met, at least not under these circumstances. Eleanor should have happened upon the emissary from Clan Dunbrock in the woods yesterday. That was her fate. I know, Merida groaned. But she met you instead, Freya continued, and because she rescued you, I suspect it has disrupted what was supposed to have come to pass. She returned her attention to the book in her lap, mumbling to herself as she skimmed the pages. It was disorienting seeing this younger woman, yet knowing somewhere inside of her resided the gray-haired wood-carving witch. But of all the people she had encountered since waking up in the woods, Freya seemed to be the only one who knew Merida's true identity. Appealing to her was Merida's only choice if she wanted things to return to normal. Merida thought quickly back to the wisps, the witch's cottage, the split-second decision she made to use the spell for herself. What would have happened if I had given the cake to my mother instead? The witch tisked, wagging a finger at her, resembling her older form. No, that's not how it works. No going back now. Metaphorically speaking, of course. I just wanted to change my fate. Well, you have. You've changed your fate in unexpected ways, and I suspect not just your own either. An uneasy weight settled in the pit of Merida's stomach. What do you mean? We are all connected in some way, Merida. I am certain that the fate of many now hangs in the balance, Freya said. She read more, her expression becoming more troubled by the moment. Merida's heart thudded. Can you help me fix it? Create another spell? There is no way to do this, Freya said. You cannot just magic spell your way out of every problem. The less magic we introduce into the situation, the less chance we have of causing further disruption. So what do I do? You have to figure out another way to bring your parents together. Oh, just that, Merida muttered. She thought about how suspicious young Eleanor had been of Clan Dunbrock in general, of her father's unconscious form being taken away by his clansmen. Finding a way for the two of them to meet on pleasant terms, let alone fall in love, seemed like a tall order. Even if I do find a way to get them together, what about me? How will I go back to my time? Freya considered this, looking up at the ceiling and through the answer was as though the answer was written there. She glanced back at the book in her lap, flipping through the yellowed pages. She raised a finger. The summer solstice. There is much power in that moment when the sun is at its highest. It opens the pathways to the unknown. Get your parents back on track before then, and there should be an opening to send you home. The book of spells disappeared. Freya rose and started to nudge Merida toward the secret door. You had better get moving. The solstice will coincide within the Highland Games in less than a fortnight, which will take most folks' attention. You will get your parents to fall in love, and I will work on finding a spell to send you home. Freya ushered her past the chamber filled with bare carvings, and then into the empty front room. Merida looked around for the older woman, but she was nowhere to be found. Wait! Merida yelled before Freya could push her out the front door. She turned. What happens if I cannot get my mom and dad to fall in love before the summer solstice? Exactly. You do not want to find out, Merida. And then Freya shut the door.